Now, let me remind you that the communications minister said upon assumption that the ministry would replace petroleum as top earner of foreign exchange. Now, the big question is how? Well, listen to this conversation I had with the barrister Adebayo Shitu. Barrister Shitu, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, let's begin now with the federal government's plans to increase broadband penetration across the country from 6% to about 30% in 2018. Where do we stand at the moment?
Well, you would recall that we lapped onto the ICT revolution practically and essentially in year 2000. Before then, if you take the telecoms sector, we had only less than 500,000 lines across the country for a population of about 180 million. By the grace of God, today we have more than 150 million functioning lines. A lot of investment had been made by operators, particularly the major ones. Apart from the major telecoms operators, a lot of ICT stakeholders have also made huge investments. Up to date, more than $32 billion worth of investments have come into the country. Most of them have been expended on infrastructure. And all these are dispersed all over the country. More importantly, the deficit that we have in broadband penetration is in regard to laying of cables, fiber optic cables across the country. Virtually every main city of the country has interconnectivity. But in regard to the hinterland and in regard to, our sections of even, the cities, there are deficits. We are working very hard. I must state this, that essentially it is not the business of government to engage in business. And so it is the private sector that is driving it. And so it is private sector funds, both local and foreign, that are being, mobilized for this. We as regulators are putting in the best and creating the best environment, enabling the environment for private sector investors to come in and invest so that, broadband penetration could be more ubiquitous than it is now.
Because I believe this is one of the plans you had for the country when you drew up a 6-point agenda that you intend to see through.
Exactly.
And I think one of which is you intend to make communications the nation's cash cow.
That's the word which I did.
How is that going to be feasible?
Well, it will be feasible in all the sectors. For instance, if you take the post office, which too is so dear to me, we are, over time, the post office has been known only as symbolizing business of selling stamps and carrying, messages, particularly letters. Today we are looking much more beyond it. By the end of our reform process in the NIPOS, issue of carrying letters and selling of postages will perhaps be just about 10% of the entire operations of NIPOS.
How do you intend to do that?
Because you see, if you look at the issue of, finance and the banking transactions, everybody should be part of the, participants in the process of financial transactions, whether one is in the cities or one is in the rural areas. Essentially, the vehicle for doing that are the banks. But if you look at the country today, banks are not in up to half of the local governments we have. We have 774 local governments in Nigeria. Banks are not in all of these places. That means that in all those places where there are banks, the people living in those areas are alienated from the banking sector and from the financial transactions through the modern way. What we're doing is we have recognized the NIPOS is located in more than 2,500 areas in Nigeria. That means whatever village or city you are, you have post offices. We hope to use these post offices as the new vehicle for what we call financial inclusion, so that everybody would be able to engage in financial inclusion, that they can use banks. A typical example is the fact that all of us have relations in the rural areas, most of where there are no banks. You have loved ones, you want to send money to them at the end of the month, for upkeep and all of that. And because there are no banks, to do that, you have to either go to the garage, motor garage, to send transport going there to perhaps give the money with all the risks, or send somebody to be going. That is very laborious, undoubtedly. What we intend to do is that with the post offices now, we are establishing what we will call NIPOST banking services. Where you are in Abuja, for instance, your village is in a remote part of Taraba. Once there's a postal agency there, you would be able to send money and it will get there in real time, just like you have taken your GSM and you are phoning that location. Yeah. We intend to do this. Again, we intend to have NIPOST insurance services. Insurance, because of its nature, insurance companies will not go to areas where they cannot make optimum profit, where participation will be very low. So we hope to use the post office also as vehicle for for popularizing insurance and for ensuring that people participate in all settlements in Nigeria. Again, if you look at a lot of post office locations, they have excess land which are undeveloped. These lands are lying fallow. We hope to make money out of them by establishing NIPOST properties, services, so that private investors can come in to develop these properties, either by establishing on our land, excess land, malls, shopping complexes, high-rise buildings, or even residential apartments or office blocks on PPP basis. They will, we hope NIPOST will be able to make a lot of money from this, because in all the locations of post offices, they are usually in central areas of cities and of settlements. So this will make good business the way we look at it.
You see, there are lots of bright ideas here, which is quite laudable. And if you look back at where we're coming from antecedents, you know that our problem here in Nigeria is implementation. How are you going to ensure that you don't have you have a hitch free?
Well, you see, when you talk of implementation, you are talking of leadership. In whatever arrangement you have, where the leadership is not capable, where the leadership is not firm, where the leadership is not knowledgeable or dynamic, you will have problems. In the last 1 year that we have had General Muhammad Buhari as our president, Nigeria is now taken more seriously. Governance has become a very serious business, and those of us in offices have taken our job seriously also. Ideas make money. If you have a leader who doesn't have the right ideas, who does not have innovative ideas to transform from nothingness to substance, then you talk of, hopelessness. I don't believe that we will fail in this matter. I am convinced that with the ideas that we are generating, which are very new and which are being commended all over, I believe we will be able to drive the process to fruition.
You see, upon your assumption, you assured Nigerians, made a promise that Nigerians will get money, value for their money in the telecom sector. But now when we look at what's happening, lots of quality breakdowns and, hitches here and there, would you say you're failing in your promise?
I'm not failing. Number one, I'm just 6 months in office. Number two, I am the first Minister of Communications to convoke a communications industry retreat with a view to galvanizing ideas from all stakeholders and all experts in the field. We have now succeeded in evolving a roadmap to drive the whole process. I can assure you that we are just beginning, and you can well be rest assured that my promise will be, concretized. Having said that, I want to say that if you look at the indices from even the Federal Bureau of Statistics, while all other sectors are going down in terms of productivity, in terms of profitability, ICT industry is the only one which is being sustained in the country now. The profits are always on the increase. And we are not surprised that this is happening. We have so many countries in the world who never had oil, who never had petroleum, who never had any other mineral resources. But through telecommunications and through ICT, they have moved from third world countries to first world countries. A very good example is Singapore, from which I returned very recently. I mean, I'm amazed at the extent of progress that they have been able to achieve within 50 years, moving from the level we were together in 1965 to where America is today. And it's a very big pity that Nigeria is still where we are. Because we had oil, we all went to sleep, we couldn't think. Now that oil is going down, we cannot but rely on ICT. And because of this, because of the great potential that we see in the ICT as the enabler of industry, the enabler of growth, the enabler of economic development, I want to assure you that our hopes will be achieved.
You see, we'll come back on more of what's happening in the telecom sector. We'll take a break right now. We're still with Barrister Adebayo Shitu, Minister for Communications. Please join us again after the break for more.